All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Top Corner Football Podcast, Interstate Edition. This is the first time that we are having a podcast recording where both of us are not in the studio at the same time, but it's sort of a holiday edition, so it's going to be a little strange. You will hear some background noise in the and hopefully we have the copyrights for all the music that's playing. But Jordan, how are you doing? How's your holiday been so far?
It's been great, man. I'm used to Texas presently, and I'm just living life, going out. Although I was sick, but I'm back. I'm back to business. I'm here for the holiday, trying to make it to 2024. So
yeah. Everyone's been getting sick, man. My family got sick. My wife got sick. Luckily, I didn't. I somehow dodged it in my own house. That was very strange. That usually doesn't happen. But so we've got a quick little show for you. We just kind of want to get something out there in the holiday break. The next episode as well might be a little abnormal. That'll take place somewhere between January 2nd and 6th, but we should be back hitting the ground normal around January 8th and 9th. But for now, let's just go through some news, man. What do you got for us? We've got some stuff to talk about, not too much, because really only the Premier League has been playing a lot during the holidays, and they've been playing overtime. We've had so many match weeks going on midweek, and the table's been all over the place at times, but we've got some good stuff to talk about, so why don't you segue in for us?
Yeah, definitely. Let's start with the transfer segment. This is your favorite segment, I guess. And City is interested in Kimmich. How about that? What would you think? The addition, will it be good for City? Will it be bad for City? And why Kimmich? Is it midfield, or is it to just kind of solidify their midfield?
Yeah, I think that they should be exploring many options, frankly. The midfield's been the biggest issue for City this year so far. They really miss Gundogan, and even though Kevin De Bruyne is out for injury, they still have him under contract, but when he's not there, they really suffer for it. And I think that someone that's a little bit more versatile than Kovacic needs to step up, and I think that Kimmich could be the right guy. He's not playing exactly the way that Thomas Tuchel wants him to play for Munich, but he still has a lot to offer, and he's still at a decent age. So I think that's a good move if they consider it.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I can see him going in and filling in that midfield, helping in. Probably that will be more of helping in transition. Probably that's how I see it. Unless it's also to kind of hope, because Rodri is having a hard time too. Not making it seem like the midfield of City of last year, with the absence of Gundogan and the absence of Kevin De Bruyne, you can feel it. And on the side of Bayern is trying to make an offer for Varane. Do you think it's worth it? Because from my end, I don't see it being worth it. Not because Varane is not good, but also the age. And let's be honest too, he's not at that level anymore. So.
Yeah. I would say, I agree. He is not at that level anymore. That's not a shame to say that. He's had an amazing career, and I think that if they're wanting to sort of cover the gaps that, Upamecano has shown that he can present, he's very athletic, but he leaves himself out of position quite a bit. Kim Min-jae is still your number one. Matthias de Ligt, for some reason, is another issue where it just seems like Thomas Tuchel is not able to really find what works best for him, but I just don't think that Varane is the answer in that scenario. But if they need someone to paper over the cracks for half a season, I understand that. But again, why Varane? Do they just kind of want? Are they maybe focusing a bit more on the name and not the value of the player at the point? That could be it. But yeah, it's a very strange decision for me if they actually go through with that.
Well, it might also be added experience. You never know. Probably coming in to fill in and try to make sure the next guy that will be filling the post, if he's young, you have Varane as a veteran defender, just kind of helping for the transition. But in a sense, I don't think they want to give as much money. I think they're looking at giving 17 million. 17 million is not bad, especially in United's position, because it's better that than nothing. If they get 17 million for him, it's better for them. Also, another thing, going back to City's side, they want Joao Palhinha in January for 50M. He plays for Fulham at this moment. So what do you think?
That's a pretty high price tag to put on him. I'm not saying he's a bad player, and I'm not saying that he is one of the most successful and most I guess noteworthy players in that Fulham squad. But 50 million, you've got to think that that's Fulham kind of upping the price tag just because City's the one asking for him, right? I could
Yeah,
see him going for a 30 or 35, but I think that 50 is a little steep. Again, not saying that he doesn't have anything to offer that City side. They definitely are a bit more threadbare in terms of the uniqueness of each individual player. They're having trouble getting everybody working together. So, yeah, I mean, if they have the money to spend, which they do, and they have a history of spending well and wisely, which they do, they really haven't had that many issues in terms of quality signings until this past season.
yeah,
And this could end up being something that sort of puts them back on the right track, or one that digs them a little bit deeper. But at the end of the day, even if it is a bad signing, they have the finances to cover for it. So, I mean, it's kind of a win-win for them regardless, because, you can consider Calvin Phillips a mistake or a loss overall, but at the end of the day, they're not really hurting from the money spent. The ownership have tons of money, and they do like to be miserly about it. And that's a good thing. So they're not just a bottomless well like Chelsea sort of presents themselves to be. But I would hate to see 50 million go to waste again, because they're not even going to get their money back for Calvin Phillips, and that's a fact.
yeah, yeah. On that side, I don't know what to think exactly, but apart from the fact that he's still 28 years old,
Yeah,
he's a good football. And the thing is, this age is more about inflation. I would think that might be in his price than trying to give 80 million. I think that for that price, 60 million or 51 million or 50 million, whatever it is, it's better than inflating the price, I guess. But
yeah,
as you
yeah,
said, not everybody might see it my way, and some people might see less. But and he's coming as a defensive midfielder, which City kind of need
yeah,
at
definitely.
this moment. So I think what City is looking for is trying to reinforce their midfield and their defensive and their defense, so they can be absolutely competitive in the sense that covering all their base and making sure they have less errors in those places. Because the past games, you've seen a lack of defensive strategy and midfield. Not a really strategy, but you see the lack of defense and lack of midfield from City side.
Yeah, so much so that it's affecting how their back line can even maintain their shape. Like, they're sort of having a
Yeah.
run of bad form in part because of how the midfield defense is unable to maintain its shape. So yeah, I mean, again, they need more. They need more than they're used to needing. Um, and they should, in theory, be willing to take more chances. They just have a good history of very smart, precise purchases, and it feels like they're not quite doing that right now.
Yeah, yeah. So, is Chelsea looking at Aaron Ramsdale in January to cover for Sanchez? Is Sanchez is injured? What do you think of that? Is that a smart move from Chelsea, or it's not? Chelsea also have a history of buying a lot of players, and I don't know if they could find someone to cover Sanchez in their effective instead of buying another player. But
Yeah.
at this point, we don't know. So, what is your own take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one, I mean, being biased as an Arsenal supporter, and sort of being neutral and sometimes at times leaning more toward Ramsdale than Raya in previous weeks, David Raya has sort of had a bit more of a consistent run in form the last 3 to 4 weeks. It's clear that he's the number one. It's clear that Ramsdale is not going to get the playing time that he wants and more than likely deserves overall, if you look at him as a player.
Yeah, yeah,
And it seems like the keeper is the one position in which Chelsea have not been wanting to spray cash at initially.
yeah,
You have 11 new signings for the outward players, and yet they signed Sanchez, which was
yeah,
questionable at best. Here, this is a purchase that makes a little bit more sense for them. Is Ramsdale a world class keeper? Probably not. I don't think he's quite world class. Is he better than Sanchez, and is he better than anybody else that Chelsea could feasibly get
yeah,
in the January market? No, I think that that's a good purchase for them. Again, it would be sad to see him go from the squad, but ultimately he's not going to get that playing time, and I think that everyone, including him, knows that. So yeah, I mean, good for them overall. I would say it'd be a shame to
Well,
see him contribute to Chelsea's upswing, but again, that's bias for me. But
yeah,
no, I
this is
mean,
from Arsenal because
they
he
need to
plays
add
at
one more
Arsenal.
player.
Yeah, well, I would say this though. Looking at Aaron Ramsdale's situation, I probably will go if I was in his shoes. I probably would go to Chelsea just because I might have more playing time. I know
Absolutely.
the boss at Arsenal said, well, yeah, he doesn't want that for him in the sense because he feels like he still has a is still valuable to Arsenal. But also, you look at the player. The player also looks at his own age, his own accomplishment, his own personal goals, and what the player really feels one needs. So I think if I was him, for me, I would probably go. It might be a shot because looking at Sanchez, he's injured, so I might go there perform very well, and it's goalkeeper, so he might that might be my chance, that might be my shot at getting back in the spot
Yeah.
where I played in my life. So if I was him, I probably might move. That's just
Yeah.
me. But
I would 100% expect Ramsdale to take the starting spot. By the time that Sanchez comes back from injury, I would expect Ramsdale to still maintain that starting position. Truly,
that
because yeah,
that's
he's not a top 10 keeper in the world, I would say, but he is and should continue to be a better option than Sanchez for sure. So yeah, I mean, again, and there's no way that they could be asking that much for Ramsdale as well. Overall, I think that that's the best keeper option for them in a crunch in January because they need it badly.
yeah. Casemiro is ready to lead the team from Old Trafford next month after acknowledging his future lies away from Chester United. Is Casemiro not happy? Is he happy? But he is ready to close the chapter on Manchester United. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
Um,
I think it was
Go
pretty clear
ahead.
that he was wanting to come into United and immediately be in a top four discussion.
Yeah,
And that's a player that comes in um, that you do expect that. That's a move that says, someone coming from Real Madrid with Champions League, titles under his belt and plenty of La Liga and Copa del Rey titles, to come into a Manchester United side that's on the upswing. You're expecting top four. You're expecting Champions League football still. Um, Even though they were in the Champions League at the start of the season and crashed out in a horrible fashion, there's no incentive for him to really stay around. And there's no reason to suggest that if they're going to rebuild the entire side from the ground up, which they should do. You and I have had that discussion plenty of times. There's nothing that really suggests that he should be one of the ones that remains. So yeah, I mean, I think that by that time in your career, when you've had that level of success, and I'm sure that you would agree with this as well. You start making moves for immediate success. When
yeah,
Cristiano Ronaldo moved from Real Madrid to Juventus, the idea was that okay, we are at least in a sort of Champions League semifinal discussion. Like that was the whole point of like that's the final piece of the puzzle. You expect big success immediately, and when it doesn't happen, you're pretty quick to want to get out of the scenario, and it's not considered a success. And I feel like this is a
yeah,
sort of that situation as well. I could see, you know, I could see maybe like a Bayern Munich picking him up. I still wouldn't like that for him or for the club. I don't know if that works. Maybe when maybe Napoli picks him up as a bit more of a coverage throughout the midfield because other than Zelensky, Labatka, and Anguissa, they're a bit bare in the midfield. I could see
yeah.
something like that as well, but he wants to play Champions League football, and I don't think that he's confident that United can get there for him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah. Especially at his age, depending on what stage he is in his life, he might be a little hungry. He might want to get some title. And in the case, if he doesn't want that, he might also want to either play more relaxed. So play in a competitive team might not be a thing for
Yeah,
him. He might.
I think that Yeah, I think that he would want to be a rotation or squad player at his age, but in a team
Okay.
that is competing at a high level in the Champions League.
That
Yeah.
yeah, I can see that for him too. What about Modric? So Real Madrid doesn't feel like doesn't that wouldn't want to extend Modric's contract. renew his contract at the end of the season. So this might be the last year for Modric, and this might mark the end of his 12-year career at Santiago Bernabeu. And the caution has gone. He's won a lot. He's won. He's been a key player for Real Madrid. He's won 5 Champions League titles since being at Madrid. So that also shows how dominant Madrid is, winning 5 titles in 12 years. So, what do you think about that? Is the way Madrid treating him, is it fair? Or do you think it's just also time for him to looking at the squad, because you also look at Madrid now? Carlo Ancelotti, for me, he's a beast because he's building that team it seems like he's building the team low key, but it's actually so smooth in terms of transition wise, because you look at the midfield, he already got everybody he needs in his midfield. You look at the attack, you look at the defense, and he's slowly flushing out old blood. Not to say that in a bad way, but
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
is
yeah.
on time. You can never be at the top for so long, and you also need to build the new generation. That seems like what he's doing. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I honestly I think that it's sad to say and it's sad to see, but yeah, the timing is right. You look at his age, and he's what 3 years older than Tony Cruz, and I think we've even had the discussion this season saying it would make sense if Tony Cruz signed on for one more year. So if you let
Yeah,
Modric go the season before you let Cruz go, it makes sense. You still have Tony Cruz for leadership. Modric and Cruz are still both performing within this squad, but they are sort of rotation players, or they're not playing full 90 minutes, and very rarely are they starting at the same time together. So you have to accept that the old club is gone. That old lineup is just sort of they are the remnants of it, and it's over. Could Modric play another year or two at that level? I think so personally. But would you rather sell him now while his value is a little bit higher than it will be in 2 years? Because he's at the age now where his value will drop exponentially with every passing year. And Madrid have a good record in the past of letting players go that can still perform, but when they go to that new club, they're not performing anywhere near what they were performing at with Real Madrid, partially because of the system, but also Real Madrid just seem to know when to let players go. So
yeah,
yeah, I think it's time. I
yeah.
think it's time. It's sad to see though.
I, yeah. Another thing is you have to see also how you see what Madrid is doing, and to actually add to that news, before we move on, for people who didn't know, Modric has won a lot. I mean, at some point we'll have to have the discussion: who is the best? Who do you think might be your top five best defender in the world? Not best defender, best midfielder in the world. With Modric close to close to that age, it might be time for discussion. Like I saw an article today, they were talking about Modric Iniesta, And to add to that, the reason why Modric might be let go of is also because you see, Ancelotti. At first, we had rumors of him going to coach to Brazil, but
Yeah,
he is in talks to extend his contract. And look at what he's doing. It seems like he's rebuilding that team, getting ready for the next championship, the next Champions League, the next. The guy is ready. You look, and that may explain why all these players had the Chouameni, the Camavinga, the Rodrigo, the Vinicius had all this extension leading to 2029, because actually to me it's business. And with what he's doing, he's
yeah,
ready.
yeah,
So going to our new segment, Manchester United take over. Did you read about Jim Radcliffe taking over?
yeah,
I think
yeah. I read a little bit
25%,
of it. He was 25%.
and he will be taking over football operations. And that, what do you think? Might that be good for Manchester United as a whole? Because it seemed like a lot of people were complaining about him, and not him. I mean, complaining about the Glasgow, complaining about United and how football operations were
Yeah,
run. So, and he will one of the agreement of his percentage or his stake is to bring in something about 300 million, which is intended to enable future investment into Old Trafford, which could see stadium capacity increase and stuff like that. That might add a little bit of modernity and just as a whole, he might taking over the whole operation might be better for United in a sense.
Oh yeah, it'll be a massive improvement for them, and it's one that you assume and you hope, even as a neutral fan, happens quickly because it is a strange Premier League when Manchester United is not in the top discussion, because
Yes,
they are
yes,
the biggest club in England without a doubt.
yeah,
And it is strange seeing them, battling for either getting smashed out of the Champions League in such a fashion, or having the possibility of not even competing in Europe at all the next season. So when new ownership comes in, they usually pump cash in. They feel a bit more kind and less domineering at times because they feel like the new guy in class. So they let the veterans kind of dictate where the money can go, but they do provide the money. You have to hope or assume that when the new ownership comes in, that a new manager comes in as well, as sort of a blank slate. And you hope that they're willing to shed the dead weight on the squad quickly, for a quick recovery. And I think that this upswing in Manchester United form is showing who should stay and who will likely go. Garnacho is more than likely, he has to stay. You have to make sure that he stays. Hoyland possibly looks like he could have some answers for you as well. But there's a lot of dead weight in the squad, and there's plenty of money to be made from it. And you hope that the new ownership with something to prove comes in and makes those decisions quickly.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. I'm ready to see what United or what are his impact on United as a whole. Because looking at that team, they need a big rebound. They need a lot of things, especially how players that had played there had come out and said things about United in terms of they might be a great club out, but in a sense, there's small club in. So we want to see that United too. So that might help. And talking of transfers, we forgot about one thing. Elois, Elois is set to get to LAFC,
Yep.
that is Los Angeles. And the thing about it, he might want to go out early, although his contract ends in summer. He might want to come here early, to start the season in MLS. I think the season starts after in winter, so he's planning to come in anytime soon around winter in
Yeah,
America.
I think it starts in like mid to late January, I believe. They're still, because the cup always ends in the late calendar year. So yeah, I mean they're about to kick back up, and yeah, he's not getting any
Yeah.
playing time soon. That's abundantly clear. It is annoying to me that, and I get it, but it shows that the MLS is nowhere near the same level of leagues around the world. The former European stars, they always go to either LAFC. It used to be the Galaxy, but now they're out of form, or Inter Miami, who are also out of form on the table last year, but we ignore that because Luis Suarez just confirmed that he's going to Inter Miami as well.
Yeah.
Um,
But
it comes down to those two clubs, and both of those clubs, you can say what you want about them, but it does a little bit for the league, but I don't think it does that much when all of this talent ends up just going to two clubs with not too much history. But it's
that
the
was that
MLS.
was gonna be my problem too, in a sense that we might at some point try to dig deeper into MLS and also understand the way how teams are set up. Because if two teams can get all this players, what about teams that can? How good is that for the league? I understand it
Yeah,
might be good for selling, but apart from selling, the league as a whole, how good does that, how impactful is that in a
yeah.
sense? Especially
Well,
that there will be just a few clubs that can do that.
Well, it's unfortunate as well because, you know, Europe is where the majority of top players go, and for Europeans, or at least people that spend most of their time in Europe, America is sort of a novelty kind of a thing. And
Yeah,
so LA is a city that they want to go to live. Like, let's face it, if you're a former Champions League winner or Champions League finalist or whatever, you don't want to go to Kansas City. You just don't. You don't
Yeah.
want to go to Kansas City. You don't want to go to Portland. Well, let's face it, even Americans don't want to go to Portland. You want to go to LA. You want to go to New York. You want to go to Miami. You might want to go to Chicago, but you'll probably get stabbed, and that's what you just accept that. But
Oh la
like
la.
there's a reason that Miami and LA are the two destination spots for these guys, and it's not always the quality of the club, it's the city, it's the lifestyle. They're toward the end of their career, they want to lay back and have a little bit of fun, and those are two big party towns. Not saying that Messi is going to party in Miami, but it's a culture. He's going to Miami for the atmosphere, for the city itself, just as much as the deal. And there's not too much as an American league that you can do about that. So yeah, I mean, like, I get it, but again, that's what separates the players wanting to go to Leipzig for the opportunities, but not wanting to go to Kansas City. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
makes sense. It makes sense to me, but I think that's partially why the American League is held back slightly when compared to other leagues around the world.
Another thing that is happening, Madrid will offer Kylian Mbappe contract next week. That is next week, as everybody understands, and but this time around, they want to do something different. They want to reoffer the contract. This might be a rumor, but it's a news at the same time. With the director of Real Madrid wants the offer ready and wants a time limit on that. So if he doesn't accept by a certain time frame or period, they won't reoffer this contract. But this contract is for summer. It's because his contract will come at expiration by summer at Paris Saint Germain. Now Real Madrid is still wanting to get him, but they won't really negotiate the contract. I think so. I think the contract that
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
offered Mbappe 3 years ago still stand, and that's about it. It's crazy that Madrid still, Real Madrid and Mbappe, they kind of like in that relationship of an abusive, you can say abusive ex, but
Yeah,
in this point he's not an ex, but it's like somebody you want to date, but the person don't really want you like that, or the person don't we don't know, and the person leads you on sometimes.
yeah. No, it is absolutely unbelievable, and it's like, and you said it pretty well. You're surprised that Real Madrid are still even interested, and I would say I'm kind of surprised, but they've reshaped their approach in the signing of him with this time limit, saying, "Look, man, we want you," like, because they're also not liars either, and also
Yeah,
every club in the world wants Kylian Mbappe, and that's just a fact. But
yeah,
what they're not willing to do is be jerked around by him still, because that's exactly what he's been doing for years now, and they're not going to put up with that. And they do have other options. If they really wanted to, they could buy out Victor Osimhen from his brand new contract. Napoli, if the price is right, will take it. You know what I mean? Frimpong is an option as well. Openda is an option. Like there are other options, and I think that Kylian Mbappe is getting a little bit too comfortable with jerking around big clubs. If Chelsea was if he strung Chelsea along, that's not that big of a deal. But it is Real Madrid. There are certain clubs that you just don't do that to, and Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, frankly, in this position of the hierarchy in Europe, Liverpool. There's a reason that he hasn't been stringing them along, because he's not interested, and frankly, they wouldn't put up with the bullshit. Whereas he
yeah,
is interested in Real Madrid,
yeah,
but he's still insistent on putting in bullshit. And they're not fools. They're not going to get scammed again, because I do think that he kind of scammed them with that last. He promised to go on a date with them, and they bought him flowers, and he left him at the restaurant alone. But no,
yeah. Now,
Madrid have more options, and the fact that they're willing to still talk to him, but not be pulled around by him, I do respect that a lot. They're very gentlemanly in that way.
yeah, I think the only problem that I can see with this one is wage offers, because looking at what is getting now and trying to downgrade to that level, it might also be another situation, because even Jude Bellingham, before going to Madrid, he had better offers in terms of wages or salary, but he
Yeah.
chose Madrid because at the end of the day, he had his personal belief and accomplishment he wanted to do. And if you're going to accomplish too quick, too fast, guess who you go to? You know it. Los blancos.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Well,
just what it is. You know, it's
it,
life.
it's it, it's funny. He acts like he is. One week he acts like he's obsessed with his salary, and then the next week he's obsessed with winning trophies. And the fact that, I mean, he always has PSG. PSG will always renew his contract. They will always increase his salary or give him a salary that he can't complain with. And so I think that he's proving more and more each transfer window that the salary is more important than the trophies, and
Yeah,
that will make a great player a very good player if you're not careful. And I think that he's already used to not winning trophies, and I think that he's also used to, if he has to be the one to act alone to pull a team up, he gets frustrated and doesn't want to do that, and that's not a sign of a good leader. And I think that he expects that if he goes to Real Madrid, people are going to do that for him, and that's not always going to be the case. Yeah, he's
yeah,
very frustrating, and honestly, I mean, I understand, like I said, Real Madrid still approaching him, but with new caveats every single time. But nothing to me says that he wants to win trophies. It all says that he wants it to be about him, and he wants to make the maximum salary. I think that that's most of where the Neymar drama came from. I would want him to stay away from my club personally. But Real Madrid are used to signing players like this, and that this is who they go after in the past, the present, and the future. So it still makes sense to me, but it would be a scary thought if it was my club that someone like that that's so disruptive could come in, or just string me along and still go to PSG and retire at PSG without a single European trophy
yeah.
to his name, and pretend that he's happy, or he is just happy and didn't give a shit about it in the first place. It's very frustrating.
That is true. Well, we are pretty much done with the news on the wounds and going to our game segment or our matches segment. Let's talk about Arsenal West Ham. What did you think of that? Another thing about that game was that Arsenal West Ham. Yeah. Um, that game was full with drama, I guess, or filled with drama, in the sense that again VAR is a question. We are questioning the legitimacy of
Yeah.
VAR, and another thing, a lot of stars, players like Berger and other, even Arteta said took to social media their frustration about what happened, and some people are calling to either putting more tech, in the sense that putting sensors in balls to determine if balls are really out of bounds or out of play, just to have a clarity of mind, because even VAR couldn't determine if the ball was out of play. So
Yeah.
it was pretty crazy. Do you recall the action?
Yeah, I mean, look, they have. Sometimes they can show you 18 angles. Sometimes they can only show you two. I don't understand what dictates when they can and can't show other angles. I'm totally fine with putting a sensor in the ball. I'm surprised that they haven't done that already. That sounds like the next step in the conversation.
Yeah,
And I will say, I mean, yes, I'm sick and tired of VAR personally. Um, I've never been a big fan of it, but I'll tell you, from the playback that I saw, I thought the ball was still in play. Truly,
okay.
I thought it was.
Well,
But
yeah,
but also, I mean, if you put a sensor in the if you put a sensor in the middle of the ball, we would know for a fact. If you had any overhead cameras on the goal, which I'm surprised also that they don't have, you would
yeah,
know. It's partially bad VAR calls, but it's also, it's the wealthiest league in the world, and yet there are so few camera positions. Whereas, you look at like American football in college, and they have 20,000 cameras around at all times. So it's like the Premier League makes more money than college football does, and so where are the extra cameras? Where are those? It shouldn't be a discussion. These things should be
yeah,
pretty clear. That being said, the one angle that I saw that was most convincing, I mean, it looked like it was still in play, and the call in the field was that it was in play, and there was not enough evidence anywhere to overturn that. Um, and yeah, like when you watch the game live and you hear commentators, and then you read it afterwards. I was personally never really in doubt that the ball was out of play, and even but more importantly than the ball being out of play, that wasn't the deciding factor. It was a 2-0 loss to Arsenal. They still had more problems than the ball just being out of play.
Yeah. You
So
mean if the ball was out of play, they still would have lost 1-0,
yeah,
I guess.
there was still so much more going on in the game than just that one call. That for me, it's not that important. But besides the fact that I genuinely thought that it was still in play. Yeah, I mean the low block that West Ham put on was fantastic. Arsenal continue to squander chances in the box. Um, they had an unbelievable amount of shots and shots on goal. They had 30 shots with 8 on goal,
Yeah.
but nothing convincing in the box despite very good buildup. And it's been going this way for weeks, and we've talked about it, where it's not that they have trouble with the buildup or that they're squandering and mismanaging passes. Even with this low block that West Ham
Yeah.
had, they were still getting tons of opportunities on net. The issue is that final touch on the ball, and
Yeah.
they're going to need something to rectify that in January. And Ivan Toney is the number one the number one option, both in terms of legitimate
Strikers.
journalists coming out and saying his options, but also it makes the most sense for them as well. Yeah, I mean that's the missing piece of the puzzle, and it's getting more and more clear within the last 3 or 4 weeks that their build-up play is outstanding. Their ability to create chances is outstanding. The end product is simply not there. But even against
Yeah.
these great defensive performances that they've been encountering in the league, these defenses are still almost no match for Arsenal. The biggest enemy that Arsenal have is themselves in that final touch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And people, guess what? Arsenal had 77 touches in the opposition box against
Yep,
West Ham. The
yep, it's
most on
unbelievable.
record since 2008 2009 in a
Yep,
single Premier League game. I'm telling you, Arsenal actually dominated the whole game. And it's interesting because I always say this: West Ham doesn't play the same style of football as Arsenal, but their style is dominating key moment and making sure
yep.
when they have key moment, it's either a score or nothing. And that's how they're able to win this thing. Hey, I still stand on what I said. West Ham might finish in six. How about that?
Yeah, West Ham top six. Yeah,
Top
yeah.
six.
I mean,
Look
look,
at
hey
what they
man,
do.
they've got a really good run in form recently, and yeah, I mean, look, if they continue to be as clinical and finishing as this, they could continue to grow because they have what 6 shots with 3 on goal and ending the night with 2 goals. You know what I mean? I mean, like that's the
Yeah.
clinical precision in that final touch that Arsenal need. Um, and yeah, I mean, you look at it: 22 crosses from Arsenal, 5 from West Ham.
Yeah.
10 corner kicks from Arsenal, 3 from West Ham, but one of those corner kicks ended in a goal. That they didn't have many set pieces, but when they did, they score off of them. 749 passes for Arsenal, 265 for West Ham. It doesn't matter. Once they get the opportunity, they made the most of it, and that was it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Another thing is another thing that we want to say is Arsenal just I think the problem I don't know if you can say the problem is striker, but I think that they need somebody that in moments like this the person will really find a way to be really clinical. Because Arsenal did play very well. At this point there's no things to blame. You can't say this or that because even the defense was great, but you always be caught up in this moment, especially if you play that high. And West Ham said in that low block that was beautiful. It means in a moment of counter attack, it will be
Yeah.
difficult for you. If that's just the case, unless when you are playing that high, you are scoring. But if you're not scoring, when the guys, when your opposition counters, the probability of them scoring and maintaining will be really high because all what they do is really taking, like I said, making sure the key moments are very well executed. And it's going to be difficult for you because by the time they're in your box, there's not a lot of people to defend. And on the side, I was very, very happy with
Yeah.
United, Aston Villa, Manchester United, Aston Villa. These past days, I think they played on 26, and that game was really good. And in the sense that for me, I saw passion, I saw hungriness, I saw a team that was excited and willing to win, which is the first time I've seen since the season has started. I saw their genuine joy. Highland playing very well. I mean, Garnacho was amazing, and I was so happy for Highland. I think he
Yeah,
played
Garnacho.
full. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, no, no,
and
no. You're right. The passion was there that day.
yeah, coming. I mean, it might not. People might not see it big, but in this day or this present time, Aston Villa is kind of a big deal. So
for sure.
Coming back from especially with United forms, past season from coming back from that two coming back from two and scoring three. That was really amazing. I like the game. I like how they played it. I like Rashford. Rashford played very well for me. He played like Rashford that I know, and the Rashford that would want to, if he wants to stay at United, if he wants to be competitive, that's the Rashford you need. You don't need the Rashford that's strolling around. You don't need the Rashford that's walking up or walking around. And another thing, Thiago's, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, they looked much more full of energy. I've said it since the start of the season, man. I think that Garnacho is there. That's who you're going to build the team around. He's still very, very young, and I think that Hoyland with better people around him to feed him the ball a little bit more. Maybe someone that's not so ineffective on the wing. The right wing is Anthony. Like that's the issue. 1/3 of the attack is consistently underperforming, be it either Sancho last season or Anthony this year. Christian Eriksen has passed his prime quite a bit in terms of being able to feed the ball into spaces, but Bruno Fernandes still has good performances more often than not. Rashford looked like he stepped up with the assist and was a constant threat with through balls. His pace, Aston Villa, no one in that back line was able to really cope with Rashford's pace. Even though he didn't look like a big threat on goal, he was able to thread the ball into Garnacho, who does seem like he has quite a bit of a good finish in him consistently. But yeah, the comeback from 2-0 was pretty impressive, man. And that's something
Yeah,
that you imagine, especially with games happening in such quick succession in December, that once they find this form, if they keep playing often, they might be able to have a long-term bit of success out of this. Because you can lose good form after missing a week or so for like an international break or whatnot. But if they're playing, 3 or 4 games in a 2-week period, that's a good way to get a lot more reps in, a lot more. Just a lot more opportunities to keep that good form going. So they could be dangerous by the time that the schedule goes back to normal in like mid-January.
that is true. That is true. I have a thing though. So if you were in a Onana's situation, what would you do? What he's doing right now, he is trying to ask the Cameroonian Federation. For those who don't know, Africa is playing the AFCON, which is the African Cup of Nations, in January, and he will be missing a lot of games and a lot of key games too. And he is asking that he should is negotiating with the country, his country of origin, Cameroon, which he will be representing during that time, to see if he could either uh, 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 come when the cup has already started, or just for him to not miss a lot of games. And you guys know Onana's situation at United, and I wonder what if any of our audience was in United Onana's shoe, what would they do? Because there's the fear of losing his place, especially if you have your place and it's not firmly cemented just because of whatever has been happening. What would you do if it was you, Uriel? Would you do it? Would you try? Because you'll be representing Cameroon. So what if you were representing the United States, but you didn't want it to come for the camp? You just wanted to come whenever they play because you don't also want to miss a lot of games in United. How would you handle the situation?
Yeah, I think that he's been fortunate enough lately to have a pretty good run in form compared to what. And again, because we had this conversation I think last month or so, and the
Yeah.
answer last month was, well, United should go ahead and bench Onana and get used to him being gone because his form was also so bad. Whereas now, since then he's had 3 or 4 games where, that first goal that he conceded on that set piece against Villa was bad. He let it go right through. But he had some other key saves, and some good moments to keep it at two goals conceded for the night. Um, I don't think that he would be worried at this point if he left right this second and was gone for 4 weeks. Based on how he's performed the last 3 or 4 weeks, I would expect him to come back in as a starter still. He put on good form when he needed to the most, and I think that his spot is overall secure unless United are determined to grab somebody in January when Onana's gone, which I wouldn't advise. I think that they have more pressing issues elsewhere, but also they need to alleviate their books and sell two of their right wingers while they have the while they have the chance.
Yeah,
I do. He has played better, so I would say I would feel comfortable where he's at right now. Um, Going to perform in AFCON and come back, and I would expect his spot to still be waiting for him when he returns.
yeah. Because it might not be an easy situation too, but like you said, at this point, I feel like if he goes, he might come back and still have his place.
Yeah,
But I understand his side too. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not an easy situation. Well, Chelsea versus Crystal Palace. What did you think? The game was good. Chelsea played very well. Played very well. And Thiago Silva, what a masterpiece from a veteran. In the sense that many people might not or didn't see this, but he had a lot of long ball and a lot of he cut off a lot of people, especially Palace defense.
yeah. I mean, he is an absolute master of positioning, and he had a couple of bad dips a couple of weeks ago that were unlike him, and I think that it looks like Chelsea and United both are sort of getting back to a baseline in terms of what to expect from them. Neither are playing as good as they could, or as the clubs themselves are expected to perform week in week out in these domestic leagues, but they both seem to be figuring something out for themselves. When Mikhailo Mudryk is playing well, he's playing very well. He looked incredibly deadly with some of his dribbling, and he's one of those guys that's so fast that he's just as dangerous cutting inside, not cutting inside to shoot on net, but just cutting
Yeah,
inside for channels to then. He runs through passing lanes at like without needing to pass the ball. That's how quick he is. He himself on his feet is just as quick as a pass in that situation. He's very impressive with his pace. Still, some of the finishing is usually what he suffers from, but the goal that he had early on was very impressive in its simplicity. That's the thing, because a lot of those guys that were performing very poorly at Chelsea were missing those kinds of shots. Sterling has done that many times in his career at different clubs. Mudryk has missed a couple of those open tap ins as well. Nico Jackson has proven that he can't quite hit from that close with inside the box too. But these, and I'm still not impressed with Nicholas Jackson, by the way.
yeah.
Even
I'm
though
still not impressed with you. I was gonna say
he
that
looked better. He looked better against Palace than he has in this season overall, but he still misses a lot of chances. He makes a lot of curious decisions inside the box. But that being said,
Yeah,
what I mean is that Mikhailo Mudryk's successful goal with its simplicity, that is what you expect. That is what you bring those guys in for. They look like they're getting a bit more in tune with each other. And I personally do like Nani Madueke. I think that when he's on the pitch, he is usually one that provides more energy than the others.
yeah,
And again, that's not saying that much because they've been noted this season for being very lackluster and being very sluggish on the ball and being very uninspired. That being said, he is usually one of the brighter points when he is on the pitch, and I think that he did all right. He almost hyperextended his knee for that penalty, though. You saw that, right? That was an
yeah,
awful
yeah.
tackle. His knee bent back the opposite direction, and
That
more
is
often
true.
than not, that's an ACL tear. That looked like it should have been an ACL tear.
Yeah, that's what was there. For me, I think Malo Gusto and Gallagher had
Yeah.
class performances during that game. But like I said, it's not a Chelsea game without Nicholas Jackson missing. He's
Yeah.
always gonna miss stuff. So
Well, and it's strange as well because they might be without Conor Gallagher by the end of January
yeah,
because
yeah,
they're looking to sell him for what was it, 45 or 50 million? Chelsea want to put him on the market for in January, which
yeah,
is a lot of money. And again, he, like Nani Madueke, has been one of the one of the brighter moments within Chelsea this season, and that's not
yeah,
necessarily a good thing because last year he was known for being the weaker side of Chelsea, and that's sort of where they're at as a club right now. But if they sell him for 45 or 50, they're used to spraying money around. What's the point of getting that money if you are insistent upon bringing people in, too many at once, mind you, for too much money, they're not going to spend this money wisely, because why would they? So if they're not going to spend the money wisely, why let him go if he's one of the few guys that's in good form for you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I just thought Chelsea was better. They played good,
Yeah.
and people like Malo Gusto, Gabriel Silva performed very well. And like you said, Madupe, that kid, he will be going. Madupe, he'll be going places, and I I want to see this Chelsea every single week in, week out. I want to see
Yeah.
how they do. So yeah, let's go to our prediction segment, or our ranking actually. Our ranking for this week. There's been a lot of games this week, and I think Tottenham was complaining. Postecoglou, he was complaining about them playing 3 games in 6 days or something like that. So
Yeah.
how are your power rankings nowadays?
Yeah, and one, I will say, yeah, 3 games in 6 days is horrible.
That's
That's
that's brutal.
that's
Yeah,
way too much. That's way too much.
and
And you hear a lot of
and
managers complain about the congestion of the schedules, especially in England, because they have 2 cup competitions, domestic competition, and then also if you're in a top 7 or 8 now, you're going into Europe. So yeah, I mean, I usually think, get over it, squad rotation, but 3 games in 6 days, like that is, I think that anybody has the right to complain about that. But so these rankings, they haven't changed that much, but you do see a little bit of an advancement for certain clubs in here. Number 1, I have Real Madrid.
yeah.
Number 2, I have Inter Milan. Number 3, I have Bayern Munich.
Okay.
Number 4, I have Manchester City. Number 5, I have Liverpool. Number 6, I think that they're here to stay, Bayer Leverkusen. 7, I have
Okay.
Arsenal. They have had a dip in form, but I do believe that it's something that can be rectified with smart purchases in January. Same thing with Aston Villa. They've had a couple of losses lately. I have them at number 8. But I do believe that it's just a dip. I think that a lot of teams right now are suffering from playing so many games in quick succession. Everybody but Manchester United, I think that they're getting a bit of a swing. So number 9, I still have Girona. And then number 10, I do have Barcelona rounding it out, because they do have more to give, but they are still performing, I think, better than a lot of people think, but not as well as they're expected. And that's sort of the curse of being a club like Barcelona. You're expected
Yeah.
to be perfect at all times, and even when you're not perfect, you can still be playing well, but it's not to that standard, and that's a bit unfair. So that's my top 10.
Yeah, I would say that top 10 is effective. I would still go for that. Or if I was gonna say my top 5, is I'll put Bayern Munich, Leverkusen, uh, Real Madrid, probably City, and Inter Milan, then Paris Saint Germain at 6. Just because things have been working out lately for them. But like you
Yeah.
said, a lot of clubs are like even Madrid. The past 2 games haven't gone well for them. Just because of that congestion, that playing so many games, especially at this time around. Yeah. So that's it for our top 10, guys.
Yep, and there are 3 relatively large matchups that will be happening, that more than likely will at least run through for the next episode. Coming up this week, in the midst of this January chaos, Fulham hosts Arsenal, which I predict a 2-1 victory for Arsenal. I expect that to be where they sort of kick their asses back in gear. Liverpool host Newcastle, which I expect a 3-1 victory for Liverpool. And then Girona host Atletico Madrid.
Ooh,
And yeah,
that'll be a good game.
Atletico Madrid being a very defensive side, but Girona still really putting on the heat. I do expect a 1-0 victory for Girona. We'll see how those work out, but those are 3 big matchups heading into this coming week that we will more than likely have on the next episode.
Yeah. So I think that's good. For Fulham, Arsenal, when are they playing?
Oh, that's a good question. What is the
I
exact
think
date
a
on that?
Sunday,
Is it
December
Sunday?
31st. Yeah,
I
Sunday.
believe you're correct on that.
Yes. Oh, wow. Well, we got good
Yeah,
games coming
yeah.
ahead of us. So,
And
on
I
that,
hope that the listeners, I hope that you please sort of stuck it out with us, and we know that recording across state lines is a pain. But we're doing this so that we just want to keep a consistency. We don't want you to forget us over the holidays. A lot's been going on for the holidays, so don't forget about us. The schedule will resume normally early to mid January, around the 8th or the 9th, and we'll be back in the studio
yeah.
to pick up the second half of these seasons and give you all of the European and UCL news and updates in action.
All right, my man Julian, co-host of Top Corner Podcast, and I would say everybody go subscribe, turn on the bell notification, do what you can do, and all our links, all our social media are always posted on all our videos. So go and visit them, subscribe, and everything. On that note, I will let you guys be. Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.